Are you gonna take a quick check on with me? Hello. I think I'll be ready to start in just a second. Okay. I got my thumbs up from my audio technician. So let me just do a little thing in the chat. I did a description. Yes. I have I did a description. I hope you guys can see it. I did it a little bit differently today instead of putting it in the chat. So like my disclaimer and everything is in there. I think it's a little bit better that way. And I will just put something in about props. It's the usual kind of thing. But just in case there's anyone trying out class for the first time today, you can take a look at the props that I would suggest. Blocks, something similar to blocks if you don't have yoga blocks, thick books, or even the seat of a chair might come in handy. A strap, a bolster or thick blanket that you can fold up, or a cushion from your couch that you might want to sit on at some point. That's about it. So let me just see if I look kind of centered on the mat here. I think I do. And it's just 5 o'clock, so maybe we'll wait 1 minute. 4:59. Let's wait 1 minute to start in case someone is just trying to log in. If you would like to, we will start lying down on the back. So if you're ready and you got all your stuff and you want to just start relaxing, you can just lie down on your back, and then we'll just do a few things from the beginning, lying on the back. Yeah, so I don't feel quite centered here. And maybe a little more back. Okay. All right, so for once I don't have a bright sunny day. So I'm hoping it's actually better in the sense that there's not as much glare, because when it's sunny, the sun hits the tree out here and glares back in a lot. So it's a nice cloudy day today. All right, so if you're lying down on your back already, go ahead and stay there. You can always hug your knees into the chest, rock back and forth, and then in just a moment, I'll proceed with what we're going to start with. Just want to make sure I have my props within reach. So today we're going to be working on some poses that have, that call for back strength as well as back bending. It's not a crazy amount of like deep back bends. It's more about using the back, using the strength of the back to get us into certain poses that do require some amount of back bending, nothing crazy. And there are always options if something's not quite working for you, if you need to back off. All right, so let's start. You're gonna lie down on your back, and we'll start with a few moments of constructive rest. So this position means you have your feet separated about as wide as the mat, and the toes might turn out a little bit, that's fine, and let the knees rest together. So the legs are resting against each other. So I like this position a lot, so I use it a lot in my teaching. So at first, it's a great way to just kind of relieve the effort of the legs from walking around like we did last week. We just want to give the legs a little moment of just almost feeling effortless or weightless, and just let the back spread on the floor. So let's just take a few breaths with that in mind. You can keep the eyes open or let them close or half close, whatever's comfortable for you at this point. And I was mentioning in my description, if you didn't have a chance to read, that everything I suggest in class, you should just add a little phrase in your head if you're comfortable with it. I never want to force anyone or make anyone feel anxiety if they're not doing exactly what I'm teaching. I don't know what's going on with you in your life, in your body, in your emotions, anything. You might be dealing with stuff, especially teaching in this format. I'm not in the room with you. I can't feel, the vibe. So if closing your eyes is going to give you anxiety, don't do it. Or anything else. Or if you feel you would injure yourself, obviously, please don't do it. Yoga is supposed to be healing, so we want to first stop doing harm or try to reduce any harm that is in the body already. So after constructive rest for a few breaths, what we're going to start to do is activate the legs very slightly by pointing the knees up. So the knees are no longer resting against each other. The feet are still wide apart, and the knees are just pointing up. Have the arms out to your sides so you can start dropping the knees side to side. Now we're just going to stay maybe 1 to 2 breaths on each side. And we're just letting the legs fall. So now the weight of the legs is taking us into the movement. We're not making the legs go to any particular place by pushing them or using hands to push them down. We're just letting the weight of the legs themselves move into the position. So everyone's going to go to a different place where the legs just kind of stop. So don't go too fast. Take a couple breaths maybe on each side so you can start to feel where that place is. And then after you do a few times, you might notice the legs automatically just start to go down a little bit more as your body just kind of catches on to what we're doing. They probably are still not going down to the floor though, that's fine. We're just gonna go a couple more times each side. Just letting the legs sink a little bit without pushing them. And then the next time you go over to your right side, we're going to stay on this side for a little while. You're going to take the top leg and bring it so it stacks on top of the bottom leg. Okay, so maybe when you do that, the top leg just lies flat down on this leg. Maybe if you're like me, there's still like a couple inches or a few inches in between. The top leg is kind of floating. Just notice where the top leg lands, again, without doing anything in particular, just letting it go to that place. And then, if the top leg is already lying flat on this leg, you can still do this action. But if it's up, like my knee's a little bit up here, this action is going to make the leg go down onto the top leg. I'm going to imagine that someone's hand is pushing into the center of my back. Don't actually push with your hand. I want you to push with the muscles of your back, but it should be as if someone's pushing in the center of your back, and that makes the leg go into the position. And then we're going to stay there a little bit. So you can take your right hand at this point and maybe put it on the outside of the top leg to just check, is that leg really down? So it's almost like you're just joining the legs in this position. So now, if your leg is down, you can go ahead and take your left hand and put it on your back and just feel the shape of the back there. So when we do a supine twist at the end of class, it's usually kind of soft just to release some of the work we've been doing in class. So this twist, even though it's a similar shape, is a little more work because we're really pushing into it. So it doesn't feel quite as relaxing, sorry. We're in a twist, but also this push, this movement of the center of the back in is a little bit of a back bend, just a little bit. And maybe you can even feel that shape in maybe the lower back maybe a little bit of a hollowing out there. Good. Slowly roll onto your back, bring both knees up, and start off again with the feet apart and the knees just pointing up. And then we'll just do a couple side to side again, just to get ready to do the other side. So again, just let the legs fall without pushing them to any particular place. And then finally, you're going to go over to your left side. And now we're going to try to get the left leg to go all the way down to the floor, and take the right leg and stack it on top. And again, you might have the top leg already flat on this leg, or there might be a little space in between, a couple inches or whatever, a few inches. So once again, we're going to just use the strength of the back to push in here. So on this side, you can see where I'm talking about, but don't actually push with your hand because we want to use the back to get there. And then push in here to make this leg come down. And if there's still some space, if the leg doesn't come all the way down to the bottom leg, that's okay, as long as you're trying to get it there, you're pushing here. So this is the little concave space you might start to become aware of. Left hand can help also push that leg down. And just a couple breaths there. And it's a little bit of work. It's not just like a relaxed twist. We'll do that. We'll do something more relaxed at the end of class. Good. And then slowly release and roll onto your back once again. Now you're going to set up with the feet parallel, hip width apart. So a little closer together than you have them before. And kind of close in to you. We're going to come up to a gentle bridge, so not too high. I'm just going to start to lift up and come up maybe, so you're in a sort of a straight line from the back to the shoulders up to the knees. Excuse me. You're going to take your hands around the waist and start to push away. So the hands are going to maybe go right onto the top of the hip bones on the sides. That's the top of your pelvis. And you're just trying to lengthen the pelvis away towards your knees. So the abdomen gets kind of lengthened out a little bit there. So it's creating a little more space there. And maybe you can feel like I can lift up a little bit higher. It's like lengthened out a little bit here. But no need to lift up too high yet. We're just feeling things out still. And then slowly lower down. And hug the knees in again. If you didn't do that already, you're going to do hugging the knees in. Rock side to side. And then rock all the way over to one side and come up. I'm going to flip right around into a tabletop, hands and knees for some cow and cat. So starting with your cow, inhale, look up. And exhale, drop the head, point the tailbone down, cat. And continuing a few more times, inhaling and exhaling. Excuse me. Continue a couple more times with your cow and cat. Just feel like I got something stuck in my throat. All right. My assistant is going to bring me a glass of water. From here, after your next cat spine, go back to child's pose and rest back, pushing the hips back towards the heels, lengthening the arms out in front. 1 sec, I'll be right back. I get a little water. Okay. So that's much better. After you rest in child's pose, oh good. Come on back up to your tabletop. And now we're going to move to our puppy pose from here. We're going to go back into puppy pose. Different way to do it. Leave the hands where they are and start to walk the knees straight back so the arms angle back, and eventually you end up in your puppy pose with the upper body in line with your arms. Take a couple breaths here, pushing back, and almost feel like you could recreate that feeling of having the hands right around the tops of the hip points on the sides, lengthening back now. Try to recreate that feeling without actually having your hands there. Good. Take a breath, look up, plant the forearms down, and come forward all the way to your Sphinx pose. You have to maybe adjust a little bit to get into the proper position, which is shoulders over elbows, forearms parallel, legs straight, pressing the tops of the feet down into the floor. You might press down so much that the kneecaps, that part of the leg starts to lift up away from the floor a little bit. And we'll go through a little sequence of poses here on the floor. So inhaling for your Sphinx, cinch around the core, and lift the elbows, slide the hands back as you exhale, reaching the heart forward. Inhale, roll the shoulders down and back, up to Cobra. Exhale, reach the heart forward, stretch the arms straight back. Inhale, Locust. Everything up, including the legs. Exhale, hands forward, palms down, and inhale back to Sphinx. Let's do that one more time. Try to keep the cinching feeling around the core throughout. All these poses are a back bend, which is also called spinal extension, in yoga speak, going backwards in the spine, right? So one of the main things we always want to do is protect, especially the lower back, by engaging the core. That's always going to be very important. So start again in Sphinx. Inhale, cinch around the core as you lift the elbows a little tiny bit so you can start to slide the hands back. Exhale, hands back by your lower ribs. Roll shoulders down and back. Inhale, Cobra. Any height Cobra that you like. Exhale, reach forward. Straighten the arms. Inhale, Locust. Keep everything up as you exhale the hands forward. And once again, inhale back to Sphinx. So we're going to go back. Let's go back straight to Locust next with an option to do Dhanurasana. So we did this last week. If you took class last week with me, bow pose, right? So I'm going to start off reaching the arms back alongside you and really reach them back. Don't just straighten them back, to wherever. You're trying to reach back and see how that and just the reaching of the arms starts to lift the chest up a little bit. You can just do Locust here, lifting the legs straight up, keeping the legs straight and trying to lift the whole leg up. Or if you would like to try bow, bend the knees, reach back for the tops of the feet or the fronts of the ankles. You might grab one foot and then the other, or try to grab both at the same time. If you have the fronts of the ankles, you can try flexing the feet. And then take a breath, and then inhale, try to lift up any amount into your bow pose. Good. Hold it for a breath, and then come all the way down. Hold one hand on top of the other, and rest the head down on your folded hands. Take a couple breaths, and you can wiggle the legs and hips side to side a few times. Good. From here, let's come back up to our tabletop, close to the front of the mat again, where we were before. From here, you're going to slide your right knee forward. So just straight forward. It ends up kind of a little bit to the inside of that right wrist. Slide the left foot back. So the left leg is straight, and you're kind of tucking this leg in underneath you a little bit. If this knee is not cooperating with that, you can just stay up a little bit more. You can just come to sort of in between like this, if this is uncomfortable on that knee. If possible, try to come all the way down. From here, walk the hands a little bit back, and then just like in cobra, rolling the shoulders down and back, inhale, lift up to like a cobra shape with the one leg back. It's like tucked underneath. Good. Now, this is going to be interesting. This is a little bit hard. Walk the hands a little bit forward again, maybe where they were. You might have to walk them a tiny bit more forward than that. Try not to go too far forward. Start to lower the chest a little bit, bending the elbows a little bit, and see if you can lift the back leg off the floor. You might have to walk the hands farther forward to be able to do that. You might even put the forearms all the way down. And try to hold it up for a breath and then come back down. So all your weight will end up on your hands and the front knee. And you're just exploring the strength of the back of your leg in this position. So from here, now we're going to turn and kind of roll onto the right side. So I'm going to swivel. So when I'm on my side this way, I'm facing towards the camera. So you're going to be on your right side. You can be propped up on your right elbow. The right knee is still tucked in. Okay, it's just resting on the leg is just resting on the floor in front of you, but it's still kind of tucked in the similar position that it was just in. Your left leg is the one reaching back here. Point the toes, and you can look back at that knee, that leg. Lift the leg off the floor so it's parallel to the floor. So all we're going to do here is, again, work with the strength of the leg, but now we have to hold it up off the floor. So the outside of the leg has to work a lot, as well as the back of the leg as we try to move the leg straight back behind us. So it's the same movement as maybe lifting the leg up in locust, or what we were just doing in this weird position we were just in, only it's a different orientation to gravity, so it might feel different. You might feel some things kind of contracting a lot in the hamstring and the glute, that whole area. Release, and then bring the leg forward, and just do the opposite. Try to bring it, keep it straight, and bring it up towards you in front. Just go slowly back and forth 2 more times. Leg back, keep the toes pointed, parallel to the floor. Squeeze it back there. This is going to be like a couple breaths each cycle. So it's not just an inhale and exhale. Just keep breathing throughout and forward, because we're going kind of slowly. Maybe 2 to 3 breaths for the whole movement. One more time, squeeze the leg back. You might feel when the leg is back, like you want to do a little bit of the back bend here. You can do a little bit. And then come to neutral when the leg comes forward. Good. All the way back to the original, not all the way back, just where it started out. And then we'll swivel up, coming back to table. I'm going to face the original direction again, over here. And now we'll do this little funny position on this side. So the left knee is going to slide straight forward from where it is. Slide the right foot back so you come down as far as is comfortable on your knee here. You can always stay lifted up a little bit if it's uncomfortable. Or another idea, should have thought of this before, put a cushion or blanket or something in there, and then the knee would be supported a little bit. That might be good if this bothers your knee at all. So here you are. First, walk the hands a little bit back and come up to your cobra position on this side. You can be on your fingertips or palms. For some reason, on this side, I want to be on my fingertips. I don't know. So a little bit of a cobra variation. Then walk the hands a little bit forward. Try not to just send them completely far forward, because then you're basically just lying down on the floor, right? You still want to have a little bit of the position of the back being extended, right? So if we were lying flat down, it's like coming back to a neutral position. So we want to keep a little bit of that. But I know it's hard. So you have to maybe put the forearms down. And maybe this side is harder than the other. But you're gonna give it a shot, or maybe a couple times trying to lift that leg up. If you've never tried this position before, I know it's a little bit weird. So sometimes it's just a matter of finding where you need to do the work. If it's an unusual movement for you, you might be trying to do it with like the wrong muscle group or something, and it takes a couple times of trying to sort of find the right places to do the work. So don't worry if you have that experience. Just try it a couple times, and then we'll come up and kind of turn onto your left side. Excuse me. So now we're here. This leg is still hugging in. The right leg is going to lift up off the floor, parallel to the floor. Point the toe. And then we're going to squeeze it back, just like a locust leg, but holding it up off the floor at the same time. And then slowly bring it forward. So we're doing it slowly so we're not using momentum to come forward. Just wherever you can bring it forward to. It doesn't have to be any particular place. Just like moving it back. Everyone's going to come to a little bit of a different place there. Squeezing the leg back. Forward again. And slowly coming back. We're going to do one more regular one, and then the next time we have the leg back, we're going to explore, can we do a little bit of this back bend. So the same shape you had for like a cobra. You can't move too much because we're still having to prop ourselves up off the floor here. But you can imagine a nice long crescent shape starting to form there. And then come back to neutral to bring the leg forward again. Good. So finally, we're going to come back onto hands and knees and tabletop. Here we are. And then, keeping the shoulders over the wrists for a moment, we're going to come to a high plank, one leg back and the other leg back, and then finally all the way up and back to your downward facing dog. Taking a couple breaths there. And again, finding that same feeling when we first did our first bridge, if your hands were here, lengthening the pelvis away. We're flipped around now, just like in puppy, but you're going to try to recreate that same feeling. Good. From here, bring the feet together in your down dog. So the inner feet can touch for a moment, and then lift the right leg. Too close there. Lift the right leg up and back, down dog split. So the leg just lifts straight up. You don't turn the hip out. You don't change anything else. Just lifting straight up, pushing the left heel down. And then you are going to open up the hip. So the right hip lifts higher. And you can point the toes. You can keep turning, lifting the leg higher. Optional if you want to bend the knee and see, can you kind of start to drop the foot behind you any amount. So this is really just to get a feeling of the nice long stretch along your right side. Re-straighten the leg, squaring it off and putting it back down. Good. Other side, left leg up. At first, just the leg lifting up. Nothing else really changes. After a breath there, then you can lift the left hip even higher. Option to bend the knee. And just see if you can feel that stretch now along the left side of the body. Maybe all the way down sort of to the lower waist, lower abdomen. Square off. And bring the foot back down. Both knees down and go back to child's pose for a few breaths. Good. Take a couple more moments in your child's pose. After this, we're going to come back to downward facing dog for a moment. and then walk the feet forward to a forward fold. So if there's anything else, any other way you want to get to a forward fold, you can always just do that. Excuse me again. All right, so you can come back up to downward facing dog for a moment. And then softly bend both knees and walk the feet forward towards your hands, feet apart, bend the knees and dangle down over your legs. Shaking out your head, yes and no. However you prefer to do a sort of ragdoll or soft forward fold just to release the spine. This is a little bit of a flexion of the spine. So flexion meaning bending, usually in well, with the spine it means bending forward. So it's the opposite of spinal extension, but we're just doing it very softly. We're not really pushing into it, right? We're just dangling and letting the spine stretch out. It's a little bit of a rounded position, right? Now we're going to keep the fingertips on the floor, or if you need to use blocks for this, you can grab your blocks and put them on the floor in front of you. Make sure the feet are parallel. They can still be wide apart, but make sure they're parallel. And then we're going to try to straighten the legs and also straighten the spine. Even if that means lifting up, we're going to try to take the roundedness out of the spine for a moment. So if you have your fingers on your mat, it's kind of a sticky mat, right? You can actually kind of be pushing back with your fingers to help lengthen the spine forward. And then come back down, just dangle, bend the knees again, lift up to neutral, hands on your legs above the knees, and push yourself up to stand. Good. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit. So we're going to do a couple things from a standing position next. So I can stand a little bit back. Okay, so coming up to your Tadasana, we're going to go up and down to a tabletop in this position. Tabletop here meaning bringing the torso parallel to the floor. So we can either do it with the arms down alongside or with the arms up. If you're not sure, try it with your arms alongside first. I'll show it that way first. Doing it with the arms up just loads the pose more, so there's more weight out in front of you to hold up. So start with the arms alongside you. The arm is going to be alongside your upper body, meaning when you tip forward, the hands will go back behind you, okay? So looking straight forward, join the legs. Inhale, and then exhale, hinge at the hips, and can you bring your upper body down towards parallel to the floor? So if you tend to hyperextend in the knee, you might want to engage the quads, so lift the kneecaps up, maybe even take a little micro bend in the knee, reaching the spine forward. The hips can go back as a little bit of a counterweight, and then come right back up. So we're going to do two more like that, either hands alongside you, or you can have the hands straight up. So to get there, let's lift the hands in front instead of out to the side. So notice, goes very slowly with your hands lifting up in front, and make sure you're not getting the hands up by kind of doing this with the body. I'm exaggerating, but sometimes we kind of use momentum to get the hands up. So it's harder, it's more work, especially for the core, to kind of, I envision like straps, just kind of strapping everything together so nothing moves except the arms. You might already feel this, a little more work. Reaching tall through the arms. Again, you're going to hinge at the hips. The hips can move back a little bit, legs stay straight, and come down as close to parallel to the floor as you can. Luckily, I have a screen I can look at to see if I'm anywhere near there. And then inhale back up. Let's try it one more time. It's a lot of work, I know. Okay. Parallel to the floor and back up. It's hard to go down and it's hard to get back up. Now we're finally going to fold all the way forward there. So come to your Tadasana again and lift the arms up in front. Big inhale, and then exhale. We're gonna pass through that same position we just did to come all the way down, hands down. Inhale, halfway up here, you're supported though. You use your hands on the fronts of your legs, and then exhale, fold again, bend the knees, inhale, step the right foot back, and exhale, drop the knee to the floor. We're gonna come up to our crescent lunge, again, with a little bit of work to strengthen the back. So you're gonna keep the body down. You can actually just be resting on the top of this thigh for a moment, lifting the arms in front alongside your ears, and then inhale, up. Exhale, reach long forward. Inhale, up. One more time, exhale, reach very, very far forward. Inhale, up. And then finally, exhale, hands down, tuck the back toes, straighten out that back leg. And once again, we're gonna try to lift up. We're gonna lift up to a high lunge, facing everything forward, and then turn towards your right to come to your warrior two. The back heel plants down, and the arms are reaching out. Gaze over your front hand for a moment, looking straight out over the middle finger, holding your warrior two. Next inhalation, straighten the front leg and tip back, reverse triangle, and then exhale, come forward to your extended side angle. Your left forearm can be propped on the front thigh. Just need to grab a block for what we're gonna do next. And from extended side angle here, we're gonna move to Ardha Chandrasana. So this is a pose balancing on one leg. You're gonna use your block. If you find the balance is very challenging for you and it's kind of holding you back from doing the pose, you could also do this, cutting this leg in half. You can put your knee down and you can do the whole pose on this knee instead of the leg. Easier to balance. Another way to do it is against a wall. So I don't have, well, I could do it over here if I wanted to. So your back is against the wall and you're going into your Ardha Chandrasana that way. So the wall is a little bit of support. It's a really great way to practice Ardha Chandrasana. But if you want to try it the regular way, I'm going to show that. So you're going to need a block, or you could also use the seat of a chair for this. Make sure this chair is not going to slide around though, wherever you have it. Make sure it's either on a sticky mat or it's not going to slide. If you're using a block, I don't know if you can see the block here. It's a little bit to the outside of your front foot. Okay, that's good. So my foot is here. If I bring the block back, it will go to the pinky side edge of the foot. But the block is a little bit out. It's kind of far out actually, because the distance between your ankle and the block is the length of your torso from your hip crease to your shoulder, okay? So it's not just a few inches, unless you're a very tiny person, okay? Most of us, normal people, I shouldn't say that, of course. Whatever size you are is probably, somewhat similar. I'm kind of a medium-sized person, right? So you're gonna reach that front hand forward, your left hand forward. This knee is still bent. Remember, we're coming from extended side angle. So we're facing sideways. And then you're gonna push off your back foot so your weight shifts forward and come to your Ardha Chandrasana. So first, we'll hold Ardha Chandrasana for a couple breaths, thinking of all four directions we're reaching in. This leg and arm down, this leg back, this arm up, and the head forward. Now, you can either stay here, or you can try moving into a pose called Chapasana. So that means bending the top leg, the foot goes behind, and then see if you can find that foot. And then from here, you go into a little bit of that back bend, just like a Dhanurasana, kind of shape with one leg. And then finally, when you come out, bring the back foot forward. So you're right back in your forward fold. And you can dangle down for a couple moments there and shake out the head. Lift the head up, come to neutral spine. Hands on your knees above the, hands on your legs above the knees, and lift up. Sorry, I always get my words mixed up. Trying to work on that. Okay, let's do the other side. Arms out in front, all the way up. And then exhale, reach forward, pass through that tabletop position as you come down, all the way. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale again, bend the knees. Inhale the left leg back. And exhale, drop the knee to the floor. Let's lift up 3 times to our crescent from here. Reach the arms forward. Inhale up. Exhale, reach long forward. Inhale up. Exhale, reach forward. Inhale up. And finally, exhale the hands all the way down. Tuck the back toes and straighten out that back leg. Again, we're going to lift up, high crescent or high lunge. And then finally, opening up to our warrior 2 on this side. I'm going to face this way. From here, you'll be looking out over your right hand in your warrior 2 for a couple moments, couple breaths. And now on your next inhalation, straighten the front leg and reach down the back leg, reverse triangle. Exhale, come forward, bend the front knee again to come to your extended side angle. And now we'll set up for Ardha Chandrasana on this side. So again, have your block or the seat of the chair a little bit out there in front. And if you're using a chair, then it can be pretty much wherever. If it's a block, it needs to be a little bit to the outside of your front foot. If you can put it in line with your front foot, you could do it that way. There's nothing wrong with putting it right in line with the front foot. It's just the balance is really, really difficult there. Having it a little bit to the outside helps us balance. So you're going to reach for that block. You can push with the back foot. So I'm coming forward out of the extended side angle, leg position, and finally lifting up the back leg, facing to the side, and trying to stretch everything away from the center. The back leg should be about parallel to the floor. At first, the foot is flexed. Just comes up off the floor, so the toes are actually going out in front of you. Then if you are going to take this into a chapasana, then you might bend, then you will bend the knee, and you could point the toes if you want. Try to grab onto the foot, and then go ahead and arch the back a little bit into chapasana, and then stepping gracefully into a forward fold. Now we'll step back to downward facing dog just for a moment. Lengthening out, releasing the heels down, and then place the knees down and go back to child's pose one more time. Good. So we're going to come up to sit. Actually, take a couple more moments in child's pose. When you're ready, come up to sit and then just sit off to one side and swing the legs around in front. We're going to do a couple more poses that call for some spinal extension again. So we're not going to forward fold yet. Excuse me. We're when you drink water and then you try to talk a lot and go upside down, causes a little bit of a burping situation. All right, sorry. First, let's just do Baddha Konasana. So, bringing the soles of the feet together. Now, if you are like me, when I come to Baddha Konasana, my knees are way up. You know, I know a lot of people can do this pose and the legs are just nicely down on the floor. If you find the knees are going way up, it can be a struggle to sit up straight because the legs are kind of pushing your upper body back a little bit. It's always fine to sit on something. I have a folded blanket. You could use something like that or a cushion to sit up a little bit higher. So then the feet have a little bit of space to go down, and hopefully it can release the legs down a little bit. So we're not even going to fold forward so much here. We're just going to hold on to the edges of the feet and think of those thighs going down. You can push them actively down for a few breaths and then release and try to keep them from going back up, which is different from pushing them down. If you want to come forward a little bit, you can pull yourself a little bit forward, but don't really think of folding forward. Think more of pushing the back in. Okay, so that's almost that same feeling as the very first thing we did, as if someone's hand is on your, I'm going to say the lower back for this, the lower back / sacrum. So it's a little bit lower than when we were doing the twist on the floor. Imagine someone's hand is there and just gently pushing you. So you move forward, but it's not really so much about folding, it's just pushing the back forward. Good. Now, we're going to do our last couple poses involving spinal extension. And you'll see it's not really so much back bending. When we say back bending, we always think of like, you know, really arching the back a lot. We've done that to prepare for this, doing this Dhanurasana and some other poses. These last two poses, the back is actually fairly straight or neutral, but we're using the strength of the back to push into the pose. So that's why we need to do all that kind of preparation. So first one is reverse table, and you might just do reverse table, we'll see. Leaning back a little bit, walking the feet in. Sometimes you have to do it a couple times to get the placement of the feet correct. If the feet are too far away, you can't do it. If the feet are too close in, you can't do it either. It has to be kind of midway, not tucking the feet in super close, kind of a medium distance. The elbows can be bent at first, and then you're going to lift up. Head can go back, or it can stay up if that's better for your neck. Try to lift the hips as high as the knees. That's reverse table. Try for a couple breaths and then come back down. Next pose is reverse plank or Purvottanasana. So it's the same thing except the legs are straight. So there are different variations to do this, and I'm going to show a couple. So sometimes if you've never done it before, you might not know what is going to work for you. You might be able to just reach the legs straight forward and come up, and boom, you're in it. You might try that and feel that it's very difficult to do. So let me show just basically, how it's done. Not that complicated. Leaning back again a little bit, but now the legs are going to be reaching forward, not completely straight to start with. If they're completely straight, it's actually harder to lift up. So you want to have a little bit of a bend, and then you're on your heels, you're pressing the front of the foot down. It might not touch the floor, but you're trying to press it down. And then as you come up, you can stretch the legs more forward. Point the toes, try to get the toes down to the floor, lifting up, 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 up. And that's reverse plank. So if you try it and it's seems very difficult to lift up. One way to get into the pose with a little bit of help is to use a bolster or a big cushion, anything that's about this size. So it's just going to help me lift my legs up. So I'm tucking it very close in under the thighs. So my knees are kind of at this edge. Depending on your size, again, you need to adjust. It's okay if the cushion comes out further, actually. If you have a larger cushion or something, and it comes out to like under the calf, something like that, it should be okay. So when I come back, I'm getting ready for my Purvottanasana. The legs are up a little bit. My heels are coming down. And then when I come up, the legs are still resting on that bolster. And I'm finding the shape without having to do all of the work myself. So that's the beauty of props. Now, you could try it with a prop, and it helps you get into the position, and then you're like, oh, I have the strength to lift the rest of the way myself. I can lift a little bit higher myself, and you can try that. I don't know if you can see my black pants and the black bolster lifting up a little bit off the bolster. You might find that is a possibility if you're using a prop. Sometimes the prop is something you need for the whole time you're doing a pose or a whole kind of practice. Sometimes you need it to get going, and then you can sort of find the strength or again, figure out where the work needs to happen to bring yourself into the pose. So I hope you tried reverse plank at least once. It's, if it's troublesome for you, you can always just go back and do either reverse table again with the legs bent. If either one of those just feels like not working for you today, for whatever reason, you can always just go back and do a bridge. So I'll give you another moment if you need to do a bridge. If you already did reverse plank and everything, you can just rest down. You can come back to constructive rest. If you need a moment to do a bridge, you go ahead and do that. And then we'll join, we'll all meet in constructive rest to do a last couple of poses. So now we're coming back to the very first pose we did. Notice maybe how the legs feel different, how the back feels different now. And take a moment letting the breath start to slow down. And then from here, I'm going to lift the feet off the floor and hug the knees in towards the chest. Lift the feet, keep the knees kind of close together at first, and just find a spot, if possible, using the hands, find a spot, if possible, to let the weight of the legs now sink straight down. Imagine that the shin bones are just moving straight down towards your body. So it's almost like you're sitting in a chair, right? And folding forward. And then we're going to take it into happy baby. So no, happy baby, the feet come farther apart. And when the feet come farther apart, the thighs start to angle out to the sides, right? So we're not coming down towards the body anymore. The shin bones are aiming down outside to the sides here. If the shin bone could come all the way down, it would target the side, right? For happy baby. So then, depending on you, you might find a little bit more movement there. Just checking the angle. Can you still see me? Okay, so try happy baby for a few breaths. You can hold behind the knee or reach up for the foot. Try to hold the outer edge of the foot in happy baby. Right? So after you teach yoga a while, you see every possible variation of holding the feet in happy baby. For some reason, the inside of the foot seems to be a popular place to hold the foot for happy baby. Even when I say the outside of the foot. If it's really hard to reach the outside of the foot, then either hold here or use a strap. The reason I don't want you to hold the inside of the foot is because watch how the shape of my leg changes, or the position of my leg in relation to my body changes when I hold the inside of the foot. I start to come towards a Baddha Konasana position, right? If I'm holding the inside of the foot. I'm exaggerating, but of course that is where you would be leading, right? So outside of the foot is just the other extreme, away from Baddha Konasana. Nothing's wrong with doing Baddha Konasana. We do it all the time. It's a great thing to do. But we did it, so we want to do something different now. So that's why I'm saying the inside of the foot is not where you hold. You hold outside of the foot or use a strap, because then with the strap you can still keep the soles of the feet going up. And then I like to crack my knees. You can also straighten the legs, holding the big toes, and stretch that way. Here again, if you're not reaching the feet, use a strap around the feet. If you can hold on to the big toes, really hold on tightly with your fingers, and then try to push your feet down. And you'll feel your big toe is getting stretched out. And I have a lot of issues with bunions. Maybe you do too. They're really hard to get rid of, but I feel this, pulling the toe that way, stretching out that buniony joint, feels really, really good for my bunions. So I like to do this. Slowly rebend the knees, release the feet. That was my lecture for the day about feet and happy baby. And come down onto your back. Let's finish with a nice supine twist. Like I promised, this one is going to be a releasing, relaxing kind of twist. So we're going to bring the legs together. You're just going to cross the right leg on top of the left. The inner thighs are close together, the knees are close together. You can take that top foot and wrap it around the opposite calf. If that doesn't work for you, you just keep or you don't want to do that, you just keep the top leg just hanging out on top. And then you drop the knees over to the side of the bottom leg. So if your right leg is on top, you go to your left. If you have the legs wrapped in your eagle wrap, it just means the legs are kind of locked together a little bit, so the twist is a little bit deeper. So if you go into it and you realize you don't really want to go that deep, then unhook the foot from behind the calf and just do it without that wrap. And then face up towards the ceiling, or you can face to the opposite side, whatever feels nice. As you just start to slow down and find a little bit of release from all the work we did with the legs and the back. Rolling onto your back, uncross the legs, and then cross left leg on top of right. Choose if you would like to wrap the legs and go over to the other side. And then finally, when you're ready, roll onto your back. If you want to stay in your twist a little bit longer, we have time, you can totally do that. After this, we're just moving into Shavasana. So if you would like to go ahead and get ready for Shavasana, roll onto your back. I realize I just did this because it feels good, so maybe you would like it too. I just picked up my head, cradled the head with the hands around the back of the skull, and then I'm just very gently lengthening the neck. So I'm pulling the hands away, and it just feels nice to stretch out the neck a little bit like that. And then I'm gently placing the head back onto the floor. Push the legs away. And then let the feet roll open. Any degree that feels comfortable. And turn the palms up. If you prefer to do Shavasana any other position, or maybe lying on your couch or any place else, that's totally fine. Since I have a bolster here, one of my preferred ways is to have a bolster under the legs. You can do that, put a cushion there, or even put your legs up on the seat of a chair or your couch. And let's do centering breath a few times. So inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. And then finally, going back to breathing in and out through the nose. Observing how the breath continues to slow down as you rest. And then as usual, taking some time to just notice, are you still holding on to any tension that you could possibly let go of? Anything still gripping anywhere? Is it possible to release that effort? Release as much as possible, which might not mean release completely, because you might need to hold on to a little bit of something. Everyone's going to have that that questioning in every Shavasana, and it might differ from day to day. Some days you might just kind of zonk out in Shavasana and just be like, oh, I'm, completely relaxed. Other days it might actually be hard to relax in Shavasana. Or you might notice something is not letting go. There's no need to worry if that happens. That's totally normal. If you would like to rest a little while longer, you're super comfortable and relaxed at home, please continue in your Shavasana. If you're ready to come out, just start to wiggle your fingers and toes a little bit and start to stretch out along the floor any way that feels right. Eventually come to bend your knees and roll over onto one side, keeping the eyes closed or half closed. Eventually push yourself up to sit. And find a comfortable seated position. And join the palms. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the practice. Send me any comments. I'll be continuing these classes at least through the summer. And if you have any requests or questions, please let me know. Namaste. Thank you again.